Hi, Oscar Sisk here again with the Bible for Atheists. The thing I'd like to cover today is the issue of um, taking the Bible for truth, for, everything in it is true. And it's just not true. That's a misuse of the Bible. An example is the story of Jonah. Jonah is a great story, and but it's Jonah was not swallowed by a fish. And are you kidding me? To live 3 days in an acid bath, a marine carnivore, no oxygen, hypothermia for 3 days. Anyway, so what you're really missing if you read Jonah that way is that it's great satire. It's funny. And it makes fun of the Jews, or at least of Jonah, who says he represents the Jews. He claims proudly that he's Hebrew in a critical part of the story. Anyway, so the story goes like this. Jonah's called by God to go witness, to be a missionary to Nineveh. Nineveh was a great, huge city on the Silk Trade route. I don't remember what empire it was at the time, but a very wealthy, big city. But it was ruled with an iron fist. I mean, they just ripped people up. They were just terrible. They'd torture their enemies, slaughter whole villages. They were just terrible people. Anyway, God looked down and he saw, how bad they were. So he told Jonah to go preach to them. Jonah did not like them, partly because they were so mean to the Hebrew people, and partly just because he didn't want to do it. He could die, but what good of a prophet is that he would go die? So what's he do? Instead of going east into Iraq, where Nineveh was, he jumps a boat to Spain, the opposite direction, the very opposite direction. He's running away from God. And he told God, he says, I know what you're going to do. I'm going to go talk to him and you're going to rescue him. You're going to save him. And he didn't want to do that. He did not want to have these people saved. Anyway, so he gets on the boat, and out at sea, somewhere in the Mediterranean, a huge storm comes up. And the sailors, who were all pagans, they started worshiping their God and doing whatever they could. Back then, every little village, had its own little god, and every person had sometimes several gods that they prayed to and so forth. And it didn't work. So none of their gods helped them. So they wake Jonah up. And they cast lots. And it pointed to Jonah. They wake him up and they says, what's your situation? How come you're on this boat, and what do you have to do? He says, well, I'm a Hebrew. And I worship the God who's in charge of the sea and the storms. Well, he says sea and land. And so he says, they say, well, what should we do? Well, he says, you got to kill me. So not only is he running away from God, he doesn't want to go to Nineveh. He thinks it's better to die drowning than it is to help the people save the boat and go back. So he doesn't even talk to God. He just says, go kill me, throw me over. Well, they don't. They throw all their cargo away, their livelihood. They throw it over the board. Still doesn't work. So then finally they say, okay, and so they throw him overboard. And a big fish eats him. And then the sailors, these pagans, they turn to God and they worship God and they make sacrifices to him, and so they're all doing the good thing. Noah, who, by the way, Noah's name means dove, and which, like, you think of a dove, peace, and all that. And his dad's name was Faithful. Well, I don't know the Hebrew name, but it means faithful. So Dove, the son of Faithful, is getting thrown over and doesn't even talk to God, just gets thrown over because the pagans are the ones who are worshiping the Jehovah God, not him. Well, so anyway, 3 days, while he's in the belly of the whale, he prays, big long prayer, and okay, I'll do what you want me to do. So God says, okay, then go to Nineveh. He takes the fish to dry land, spits him out onto the land, and then he hikes. Now, he hasn't eaten 3 days, unless he ate the stuff that was in the belly of the fish. Anyway, he hikes across land. I don't know how far it is. I think it's hundreds of miles. It's through the upper part of Israel, out to, well, it depends on where the fish coughed him up at, but Syria, Jordan, finally to Iraq, finally to Nineveh, and this huge city. So instead of preaching, you need to convert to the Yahweh God, Jehovah God, or whatever, he just says, you're all going to die. And that's what he says. You're going to be overthrown. And lo and behold, the entire city, that's why it's a satire. The whole thing is a joke. It's silly. The whole town, the whole city, which, by the way, it says it's the biggest city ever. And of course it's not, but he says it takes, I don't know how much, many days to cross from one end to the other. And of course it doesn't. You can walk it in a day. But anyway, of what we know of Nineveh. Anyway, it's just, that's satire. Everything is overblown, bigger than life. Anyway, so everybody repents and they turn to God. Even the king, who usually destroys people for not worshiping him. And then, even the cows in the city repent and worship God. So that's the nature of satire, making fun of it. And so Jonah is really angry. He's really angry. He says, God, I told you you wouldn't, this is what's going to happen. And, here Jonah tried to just tell them, you're all going to die. But God saved him. God rescued the whole city. And so Jonah's really angry. He's angry at God. So he goes out to the edge of the city and he sits down and he pouts and groans against God. And then God raises up this plant to give him some shade. Poor baby. What a snowflake. So he's sitting in the shade. The next day, God raises up a worm that kills the tree. Then Jonah's mad again. He curses God. He says, I should die. Let me die. I'd rather be dead than this. And that's kind of it. That's kind of, God answers that too. But that's kind of the story. So I get a lot of sermons are, the merciful God who sends the fish in a special prepared fish that, it's just nonsense. The thing is, if you realize it's a satire, then you can investigate why it's a satire. It's making fun of the righteous son of faithfulness who is not faithful at all, which, by the way, is the whole Old Testament complaint about the Jews in the first place, that they always go off and escape from God and ignore him, and run away from him. And it just puts it in extremes. He wants to die instead of do his missionary duty. And so the lesson shouldn't, I think, you can draw any lesson you want out of it, of course, But it wasn't that God really prepared a fish, because he was loving, and the city, even the cows, really did repent. Because, by the way, Jonah didn't even, in his little sermon, did not even say there's a God. He just says, you're all going to be overthrown. You're all going to die. That was his sermon, as much as we have of it. And so, and the cows even repent. I don't know that. But anyway, it's making fun of probably the Jews rejecting God. They did that all through the Old Testament. And they did it because they were afraid, and because another good lesson that could be brought out of it is they hated the Ninevites. Well, possibly, but probably with good reason. But he thought they deserved to die. Anyway, that's, you can get more lessons out of it. It only takes about 12 minutes to read in the Bible, Jonah. It's 4 chapters. And so I'd encourage you to read it, but don't take it for real. Heaven's sake. Bye.